and for me. And now sometimes I tell people I'm adopted. So do I.
It gives me a great privilege and honor to welcome an absolute legend on Filme Shilmy today, someone who I have absolutely enjoyed watching over the years and who's an absolute star. Deepti Naval ji, a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks.
Now, I must say, the films that you've been a part of, especially based in the UK, The Boy with the Topknot, and of course now Goldfish, both of them actually speak a lot about mental health. They talk about cerebral issues. For you to take up these roles, what has been the real guiding force, I think, in terms of you agreeing to do this?
I have always been interested in mental health issues. I studied abnormal psychology in college when I was graduating from Hunter College, New York, City University of New York. It was one of my major subjects. I have known people who have suffered from mental health issues. I have experienced depression myself back in the 90s and have fought depression. This is a subject that is after my heart. I am concerned about mental health. One of my books talks about mental health a lot. My collection of poems called Black Wind and Other Poems. There's a whole section in there about women in the Indian mental asylums. And that's the kind of work I continue to do.
Right.
Off and on. Yeah. So it is an issue that is has, I feel very concerned about it.
Mm-hmm. And I think in Goldfish as well, for me, the sort of dysfunctional relationship between an estranged daughter and the mother that is obviously suffering heavily from dementia, it's very intense. But I think the way you have performed it was just remarkable. I think for you to present, the story of a dementia patient, how much research did you have to do? Did you actually meet people with dementia to sort of help you amalgamate that and present it in an authentic way?
I didn't have to go out to meet people as such. For the role, for my performance. But my mother, because she suffered from Alzheimer's and dementia, so I have known it closely, at real close quarters. So it's one of those unfortunate things. It is cathartic, to kind of relive and go back into moments that I have known with my mother. And also from observing life around, a lot of older people that one knows or meets or encounters, you do see traces of dementia. You do. It's not hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
People who are suffering from.
Mm-hmm. And I think when you look up, because thank you for sharing as well that whole idea about you suffering from depression. I mean, I suffer from that too, and anxiety too, and it's a very difficult phase to get out of. But I think what has helped you to deal with with this, because it's obviously a very rampant issue which is so common, not just in our community, in the South Asian community, but I think generally in life too.
See, for me, writing helped me a lot. I just took to writing and painting very, very rigorously when I was going through depression, and I was pouring my heart out in a way. The book, which is called Black Wind and Other Poems, the title itself signifies that it is the darker side of life. I was going through it and I was trying to express it as much as I could. Also, it was a way of dealing with myself. That was my one sort of escape, or you can say crutch. I could latch on to when I was fighting depression. I was, the process of writing really, really, it was like therapeutic. It helped me tremendously because I was able to give expression to what I was feeling, things that I was going through. Because I was able to pour all that out, I think it was like therapy for me.
Mhm. And they often say, right, that creative, जो चाहे painting हो या arts हो, वो काफी therapeutic actually होता है, for people who suffer from depression and anxiety. So I think it just goes to show, isn't it, that there is a way of healing from it.
Yes, because it is the deepermost. It comes from the deepermost areas of your heart and your mind. It doesn't. You don't confront it on the surface till you are pushed to tap those areas within yourself which are lying dormant. But when they begin to surface, and that is when you realize, oh my God, there is so much inside, and I've never really confronted it. And when you have to confront it, it's a bit unnerving, it's scary. But since I've been a student of psychology and also being an actor, I've had the advantage of being able to observe myself going there to the dark edge, deep down there, and then knowing that I only can help myself. I was the observer as well as I guess somewhere being an actor has helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it fascinates me, and I'm really glad we're having this conversation actually, Deepti ji, because when मैं अगर कोई मुझे कहता कि Deepti Naval, the first thing मुझे जो image आती है, it's like you have been a very natural actor who has played roles which are realistic, but then also very sensitively, very sensitively done. I think for me, one of the major, if I can even dare to say, for me, one of the biggest takeaways from your career and one of the best roles of yours I personally loved was in NH10. That role you played, I mean, it was so unassuming, but yet so
I'm
dark.
glad to hear that.
In essence, thank you. थैंक यू सो जब आप हम कह रहे थे ना कि आपको वो जब आर्ट होता है तो you sort of delve into a very darker side of yourself. So even for a role like NH10, because even though you played it with delicately and yet also sensitively, how tough is it for you to even introspect for dark characters like that too?
This was the first time I was playing this kind of on the negative. But what worked for me was to in my heart to understand this woman, that she's a victim of her circumstances. This is who she is. This is all she's known. This is what she believes. That if your daughter goes out of the community and runs away with somebody to get married to a boy out of the community, she should be dead. She has to be done away with. I mean, it really dawns on you that, my God, look at that mindset. Once you get into the mind of that character, you realize what is that mindset. So much conviction, so much being, having been brainwashed by the milieu in which you are living, by the society in which you're a product of that. You're a mother, but you're a product of that social milieu. So you're convinced, and you send the goons, including your sons, out to kill your daughter. I mean, it freaked me out.
Scary. It's very scary.
Yeah. But to do it with that conviction, that's the job of an actor, to get into the mind of that character and then bring out her conviction in doing that negative, awful, that absolutely, that betrayal of, towards a child.
Yeah, it's absolutely barbaric. And then if you see that,
Yeah.
I mean, then in your role in Goldfish, obviously as a parent, it's quite different from obviously NH10, of course. But
Yeah.
again, when it comes to Goldfish and that character that you're playing and the rapport that she has with her daughter, you also have a daughter in your life. You're also a mum. So again, when it comes to that sort of dynamic, to what extent was your personal life, if at all, a reference point for you?
I had to use my imagination. I had to use, of course, it took me something to convince myself to do the role. Once I decided to do it, I had to stay away from my equation with my daughter because then it would distract me. I had to focus on this Sarpanch ji, who she is in the village, what she thinks her duty is towards the community. It is happening now in her home. And it's a stand she has to take. I had to stay away from my equation with my mom because it was like that. And my daughter also. And I had to focus on imagining that I'm in that Haryanvi, environment. I'm in a village. I'm also in a position which is an exemplary thing. If other people, we expect other people to do it, or it's now my daughter. I must set the rules. I must go by the book. And nahi matlab, community doesn't agree means no. She can't get away with it. She has to be done away with.
Wow.
So is tarah ka conviction, you use a lot of your imagination. You plant yourself in that, and you plant yourself there, and you start thinking from the character's point of view. Your own life doesn't help you there.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, that's a good thing, actually, that life doesn't help us there at that point. I mean, imagine if that was the case, then I'll be very worried. I'll be like, oh my God. But no, it's true. But I think आपकी जो खासियत ये है, दीप्ति जी, कि आप अमृतसर इंडिया में पैदा हुई हैं, बट आप अमेरिका में सेटल्ड है, वहां पर मूव हो गई थी आप. तो आजकल अगर हम देखें, and I think Goldfish is also a very huge testament to this as well. Nowadays, like whether it's Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway or any other film, we're seeing the real gritty lives, the real raw lives of NRIs abroad. It's not just the glamorous representation कि हाँ बड़े बड़े mansion में रह गए, chiffon साड़ी पहन लिया, ऐसा तो depiction अब हो नहीं रहा है. It's very real, and sometimes it's quite bleak as well. So I think the fact that aap khud ek NRI hai in a way as well, how has this kind of helped you to understand the harsh realities of the lives we live?
See, I know the NRI life. I know how hard it is. I know the turmoil within, the cultural turbulence within people. You want to hang on to your own values, your values, which is coming with you from your country of birth. But at the same time, you want to adapt. You want to fit in. So some values you take. You're in America, you want to go by certain things which are American. So you try to create a blend. You try to kind of fit in. But what has really helped me in understanding this, the diaspora. When my father, he was a professor of English in America all his life, and he wrote a major academic book called Striped Zebra, The Immigrant Psyche.
Wow.
Now, it is a major academic study about the mind of the immigrant, the struggles. It is a very academic book, like full of statistics and real life stories of how people have left their homes, hearth and home, and traveled far away to different lands and come to America and go to other places, risking their life, risking everything that they have. You know, that is a major book called Striped Zebra. And I used to discuss with my father, and he would talk a lot about the research that went into, you know, how he came to the conclusions. And so I know that for us, it was simple. My father migrated because he was a professional. He was qualified as a teacher, as a professor, and he got his job there. But then there were Indians who were from lesser qualified people who came by all kinds of illegal means, and they hid themselves, managed to get across, managed to get to America, hiding somewhere, illegal immigrants trying to do work, waiting to somehow get a green card, or trying to, you know, find ways of surviving. And survival is hard. You know, survival is hard. You know, people, I mean, all kinds of jobs. So I've seen all that. I mean, I know that side, that the hardships of being an immigrant and trying to make a life for yourself in a new country. I know that quite well.
Sure.
Yeah. But here we are talking, here in Goldfish, we're talking about a woman. She has been, she is a classical singer. She has been probably a performing artist, or had a dream to be a performing artist, but she still is a classical singer, somebody who loves her music and misses her concerts and you know, going to concerts, and she's still with her music. That is her one solace, the one point of, you know, solace in her life. And she's led a hard life. You can tell. Yeah. She's also had to struggle, led a hard life. And then the hard life in this film is more because of her marriage going wrong and having a problematic relationship with her daughter. You know? So those are the things that people will get to see in the film. You know, the equation between the mother and the daughter, which is the central key theme of the film, Goldfish. And I think that has been dealt very, very sensitively by our director, Pushan Kripalani. He is also, because his grandmother suffered from dementia, so he's been able to draw a lot from his experience with her, you know, from family history. He's been able to pull that in as well, and written a really, truly sensitive script.
No, absolutely. And I've seen the film. It's a tough pill to swallow. Actually, I remember watching it and I felt a little like tugging in my heart. In fact, it's interesting because we had another British Asian film recently called Little English, which released. And again, that also talks about this whole dysfunctional relationship between a mother and the son, you know. And I think, again, it's very interesting to see such stories really come to surface as well. But, you know, I must say, Deepti ji, is that what I am very floored by is that you have such a rich legacy. You have a rich legacy. You've achieved so much in your life, but yet there is this humility that you display. I mean, even just right now, when you were trying to adjust the Zoom settings and everything, I was like, I mean, this is the lady who literally has been one of the major faces of the parallel cinema movement in India. I mean, मतलब मुझे यकीन ही नहीं होता है. Like, firstly, how do you not allow stardom or fame to impair your humanity? Because I've seen, I mean, I'm sure you've also seen people in this industry जो थोड़ा सा fame आता है फिर सर पे चढ़ जाता है. So how do you kind of manage that? I would love to know.
See, I think, that phase, as I would put it, happened with me for a very brief little period. And I quickly realized it's something false here. It doesn't ring true. I want to connect back with myself. I don't want to lose touch with me. That was a little phase that happened back in the late 80s, but I got over, I threw it out quickly and returned to myself. And I have stayed there mostly. Because see, as an artist, it's your duty to stay connected with real life. Because what you're projecting, what I'm projecting in my films is real people. People, you, me, and people around us can identify with. I'm not some female who exists only on the Hindi big screen. I've never been that. So I've always wanted to be real people, play real women, you know. So I guess that has kept me grounded also. And I love when earlier I remember when I would not be shooting, or if a shooting would get cancelled, I would take the first flight out to Delhi and then get onto the Punjab Roadways or Himachal Roadways bus and go to Himachal, Manali, Kullu, Dalhousie, anywhere, and just be walking around, just be looking at life, just be in the wilderness, trekking, doing just ordinary things, sitting and chatting with dhabawalas, and just getting to know people, just chatting up people, observing people in trains, in buses, and people walking around, and yeah. So I've always remained grounded.
Right. And for me, this is really, I think, in a way, a dream come true as well, because I'll be very honest. Like, I must say, for me, you, Smita Patil ji, Shabana Azmi ji, I feel like the most beautiful thing about you as artists is that you really know the pulse of realism, and I think the fact that at that time, because obviously parallel cinema was a movement, it was a revolution, right, for Hindi at that point in time. And if you think about it, I mean, this was like the era of like the Manmohan Desai movies and like the pot boiler films that we term it today. That was the peak. So उस वक्त प्रेशर में ना आके, कमर्शियल फिल्म्स ना करके, कितना डिफिकल्ट था आपके लिए वो फोकस मेंटेन करना?
See, I was very drawn to this so-called parallel cinema. I was very drawn to it. I found it I got very charged when when I would hear a good script, when I read a good screenplay. For example, Kamla. When I had to play this Adivasi,
Oh.
I remember being so charged about doing that role, and that kind of, I felt I'm going to recreate this person on screen, and bring and give people an insight into her life, into her mind, her the situation in life. So those were the things that drew me to this cinema. And I did a couple of commercial films, but they were like Ek Baar Chale Aao, love story, girl meets boy, opposition, great, restrictions at home, and then finally tragedy, whatever. But it doesn't I mean, it didn't leave you with much.
Hmm.
I mean, those are regular stories.
Yeah.
It didn't give you an insight of any kind. So I did have a heart for parallel cinema. I did. My heart did beat for it, for that. Yeah.
And it's quite interesting you say that as well, because even if we look at like Angoor and Chashme Buddoor, for example, I mean, your pairing with Farooq Sheikh, I mean, that itself needs like a separate dissertation only, to be very honest, to dissect, because it was so wonderful to see you both. And I think it was such a rarity to see a loved couple outside the whole commercial cinema zone. So I think for viewers at that time, it was definitely a treat. But I think also like films like as I mentioned, they definitely seemed like even though they were on the parallel side, but because of how popular they became,
No,
it almost
you know,
veered into
they were not quite. They were. I would say midstream cinema,
exactly.
like Rishikesh Mukherjee, like Bashu Chatterjee.
Yes.
So Sai Paranjpe, and she excelled in her Chashme Buddoors and Kathas. She really, hit the nail on the head.
Right.
With saying things with these two films. And another film that she had done, Sparsh, was more offbeat, but Chashme Badur and Katha, I see them as pretty much mainstream or midstream, you can say.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think even Sai Paranjpai ji as well, I mean, if we think about it, at that time it was so rare, I think, for women filmmakers to emerge. And here she is as one of the sort of head honchos of the parallel cinema movement. I mean, it's
Yes.
wonderful. Isn't it so amazing to kind of see that evolving? In fact, I'm going to use that to lead to a question because like I said, your films have always reflected women of today, and I think even your contemporary works reflect that. But how do you feel about the evolving representation of women in today's day and age where अब हीरोइन या हीरो कुछ नहीं है सब gray है everything is almost becoming into one melting pot now, so how do you
Yeah.
feel about that?
But that's a change which is bound to be visible in cinema because things are changing in society. Things are changing a whole great deal. Great deal. There's so much exposure. People are not youngsters are not innocent, and they're not the innocent youngsters of the 70s and the 80s. I mean, today people know too much. they
I agree.
they may not need to know that much, but they do. So that in quotes innocence as such doesn't even exist anymore. Because society has changed. Television, starting with MTV, remember
I remember
the
very well.
old days of MTV? Yeah, with all those song and dance movements and, pretty,
Pretty hip.
uh, you know, started with that. And then, I mean, everything has changed today. On one level, there's a lot of strong, strong themes which are being uh, filmed, and women are central characters, and they are driving the movie. At the same time, women are also projected as just objects, you know. Um, so this is existing together. I don't know how it is, how that is happening, but that's what is happening, and it's being accepted. I mean, within all that glam and all that stuff, um, uh, people are going for the strong subjects, women-centric films, women with strong characters. So, dono chal raha is at the same time.
Yeah, that is true actually. It's almost like this very weird juxtaposition that's happening. मैंने ये बात notice की
Yeah.
है. But I'll tell you Deepti ji, like of course मैं बहुत खुश हूँ ये बात जान के कि अब grey characters या grey stories emerge हो रही है. ये अच्छी बात है. But I think Hindi cinema, I think it's in the process of a revival, if I'm very honest. Because, and I'll tell you why. I feel like what's happening is that वो जो पिक्चरें जो लोग मशीन की तरह चला रहे थे, because जब when you were in emerging, like obviously when you were in your initial days of your career, that was a day when voices and people were making cinema for the passion of filmmaking and for the passion of the craft. But I think what's happening and what's happened since is that it's just been like a machine. It's just churning out stuff just to make a quick buck and move on. तो आपके हिसाब से वो क्या चीज है that Hindi cinema can perhaps introspect on and go back to how perhaps the passion that was once there for the art of filmmaking. What do you think can help in this revival? Do you think?
I think the content was different. Times were simpler. There was more depth in the stories. There was more depth. Today's it's a little frothy, most of this stuff. I'm saying there are within today's today's cinema, there are some films which have all the depth, which are really hard hitting. I probably will not be able to name offhand right away, but I've been very moved by some subjects which I've seen lately. And see, what happened is when we were doing all these parallel cinema, technically we were not that smart. Yes, there was no finesse. Today, the finesse, the effects, technically we are far more superior, and actors are so skilled. I love the younger generation. They're so professional with their work. Everyone is so skilled at whatever department they are working for, and much more disciplined on the set.
Right.
Things are very different today, and usme mostly aapko lagta hai it's all prop and there's really nothing, no substance. But if you carefully look, there are every now and then you see a film which is hard hitting and which talks a lot of sense. So
Right.
as funny that it doesn't exist today, it does, and probably it's coming back slowly more and more.
And it's interesting you say that, because I feel like जब हम pot boilers की बात कर रहे थे, right? We were at us waqt, because obviously India at that point was still reeling from colonialism, but thankfully I feel like we've reached a stage as Indians, and I'm really proud of the fact that India as a country is doing very well economically, and there's a certain stage that we've all reached as people, and I feel like there's a bit of a satisfaction as well. When I came to India, I sensed that in the people there, and I was very happy to see that. So I think what's happening now is that there seems to not be that need of looking at a larger than life figure for validation anymore. In fact, what's happening now, right? It seems like as if realism mein escapism dhoond rahe hai log. I mean, that's what I feel, like how you were saying about films that are hard hitting. Would you also agree with that? The fact that there are now films that are socially relevant, but yet also have that aspect of commercialism too?
Yes, it's presented. See, the packaging is done very commercially. And why not? Because earlier, those films had a smaller audience, because they didn't cater to the common person.
Yeah.
There was a small group that likes, more intellectually targeted, and well, there's definitely more finesse in cinema. Sometimes I feel heart की थोड़ी कमी है.
That's it. वही मैं बात कर रहा हूँ.
हाँ, heart की थोड़ी कमी. Let's hope we get there. Let's hope we gradually, when we've gotten over all this glam slam stuff, we move to the real stuff. And of course, with the newfound finesse, with this technical know-how, and with all uh, the things that have been added on, and we are good at now. Cinematically, we are really, really good now. So I think it'd be great when we do more and more meaningful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very true.
Right now, it's a bit few and far between, but I mean, there was a time when I was saying that look at एक फिल्म जैसे मिस्टर बच्चन, अमित जी ने की starting with मोहब्बतें and no Pa and Piku. I mean, different characters. Alia Bhatt, she's playing different characters. The younger people, even Priyanka,
Yeah, mind-blowing.
Deepika also, the South Indian Chennai Express. There's a huge attempt to characterization में कुछ अलग किया जाए, कुछ
हाँ,
yeah,
बिल्कुल.
I think I don't see it as such a setback. I see it as a very exciting phase for actors today in the industry. There's diverse kind of work that is available that they can dig their hands into.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's definitely diversification has definitely increased.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I think on a final note, Deepti ji, because obviously like you have set such amazing precedents, and again जो natural flare up लाते हो अपने craft में, sensitivity लाते हो, वो बहुत ही एक rare चीज होती है एक artist में. तो वो अब किस तरह का shade up करना चाहेंगी? What would you say is the type of role that you are desperately trying to attempt or wanting to do?
I don't know. I think I would like to maybe do a biopic. That would be interesting to do. I'm not sure which one, who I would like to play.
खुद
I'm
का
not sure, but
biopic बनो.
I like biopics. I think they have shelf life. Yeah.
Well, I think you should do your own biopic, ma'am. I think हम सब देखना चाहेंगे. It will be an iconic movement, I think, for Hindi cinema or Indian cinema, where we see an actress playing her own biopic. I mean, I don't think there is anyone who could ever play you anyway. But yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's a bit late now.
No, but it's remarkable, honestly. I think Deepti ji, just the journey you've had, and I think just hearing your observations, your take on life is just so positive, and you've gone through a lot as well. I mean, you have faced grief, you've faced darkness in your life, but yet you still have a smile on your face. I think that is so inspiring. Like, really, it really is.
Thank you for saying that.
And I think a lot of people can certainly take a leaf out of that and be inspired by that. And thank you for also sharing, your journey with mental health as well. I think it's so wonderful to have someone, a legend of your status, to actually do that, because I think that will be, again, motivate people that, help is available and there's a way out of things. And I think Goldfish is a huge testament as well to that as well.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Pradeepji, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with
Lovely
me.
chatting with you. Thank you.
Likewise,
I've
and
enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks.
please come to London very soon. It'll be wonderful to
Yes,
meet you.
I would love that. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.